hire slow, fire fast. And so when we decided on implementing EOS, one of the things that became very clear is now we had a way of identifying very clearly who the right people were. And so we took our time to find the right people that fit our culture like a glove, because you're spending more time with these people than you do your wife and kids. I mean, 40 plus hours a week. Take away the sleep hours as well. I mean, you're with your family less time than these people you work with every day if you're in a business, right? And so you really want to make sure that the people you're bringing in fit that culture. And core values is one way we look at that is, do they fit your core values? But you also have to know what your core values are. You got to know who you are at your core to know who the people are that you want to spend the time with each and every week.
Welcome to Beyond the Ledger, real conversations with people driving business forward. I'm Troy Ashby, CPA and host. Each episode, we unpack stories, challenges, and insights from today's top accounting and finance leaders. This podcast is brought to you by my friends over at MarketScale. Welcome back to Beyond the Ledger. Today's guest is Aaron Garcia. He has nearly 2 decades of hands-on experience driving growth in entrepreneurial companies. Today, he's an EOS Implementer and former Integrator who's helped scale businesses 5x in 5 years. Today, he works with founders to bring clarity and discipline, accountability to their companies. Aaron, welcome.
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm good. I'm excited.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Today's show is going to be a little bit different because usually they're going to be financial leaders, but the audience is the same. And before we dive into how you can help these companies, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you that we can't find on LinkedIn?
That's a great question. What's not on LinkedIn? Because there's a lot on LinkedIn. It's funny. I actually got this question the other day, which was, what is one thing that someone doesn't know about you that they'd find interesting? And one of those things was I actually went to college to be an actor. So went to SMU, thought this was my dream. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. About a year and a half in, I realized, there's a lot of people trying to do the same thing and not doing really well at it and not making a lot of money either. I really wanted a family. I really wanted to have kids and the whole nine. And it was going to be really hard to do that on a waiter's salary or, temp jobs to have the time to do auditions and all that. So quickly pivoted, but I would consider myself somewhat of a Renaissance guy in that I've done a little bit of everything from shoe sales to waiter to tech to insurance to a little bit of everything, ministry. I mean, a lot. So all of that I think has prepared me for where I'm at now. Yeah.
This explains a lot about your communication style. You were going for actor. Now I'm beginning to see, I've known you for a while. Now I'm starting to see a little bit more of Aaron in a different light.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that, because I think that, the theme Beyond the Ledger, sometimes people don't get to see behind the scenes in a lot of things anymore. So before we jump into you being an EOS implementer, there may be several people out here who aren't familiar with EOS. We'll probably dive into that too. But before you got into that, talk about later in your career and then how that kind of evolved before EOS.
Yeah, for sure. So I always had a knack and passion for IT. At 13, I took my first computer apart, put it back together, and it actually worked. So it wasn't this weird, I don't know what I'm doing. And so going to school for theater, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. But once I decided to make that pivot, it became a natural thing for me. I could easily learn different things around computers and supporting people and just love helping them with their computer help, wherever that may be. I was in IT for over 20 years. 17 of those years, almost 18 now, has been in the managed services space, or MSP, if you've ever heard that nomenclature. And so just this idea that we were a full team that was IT support for a company that couldn't afford maybe an IT person could save some money and do that, use us instead. And so I just quickly wanted to always be part of a management company or a management team specifically, and worked my way up through the ranks and got to where I was director level and did that for many, many years. And so I was on leadership teams for over about that 17 years timeframe, and just got to see all the things relative to business and running a business, especially entrepreneurial businesses. I've worked for Accenture, a big company, right? And you're just a number there. Seeing the smaller companies and how you have to pivot and have to be flexible and do different things just to make sure you're making the money you need to make to feed the mouths and employees that you have was very interesting to me. So I loved seeing all aspects of the business from that leadership standpoint. My last company started out as director of operations, and we helped grow that business initially when I was the 5th employee. We did about $500,000 in revenue and just continued to grow that business over 11 and a half years. and just really got introduced to EOS through that last company, and just enjoying that journey and seeing what it did for us was just crazy. I mean, it was really just an amazing change and pivot point for us.
Right. So over 11 years, you're growing like gangbusters, adding people, and you're introduced to EOS. Talk to us about, in layman's terms, the best way to describe EOS.
Yeah. I mean, what I tell people is I help those that are owners, founders, CEOs, and leadership teams essentially get to a point where they can take a vacation without their cell phone or laptop attached to them. Well, what does that mean? Because some people don't care. Some people like the vacations, but really what I'm doing is helping them implement a proven system of simple tools that allow them to run their business better and ultimately live a better life.
Wow, you actually really summed that up. What does that look like now? Or I guess maybe before. You were an integrator before.
Correct. That's an EOS term that not everybody understands. So an integrator is essentially, if you were to put a title to it, a lot of times it's your COO or your president, someone who maybe isn't the original founder. Sometimes it is. But they're the ones that are kind of beating the drum every day, making sure that the operations are running throughout the entire organization. They make sure there's team health on the leadership side of things. And just, they're the ones that are okay with dealing with the hard conversations. They're in the trenches, so to speak, with everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. So you got to be in it from that perspective, that passion about EOS that you just launched out and took off. Was there a inflection point?
Oh, for sure. So to back up a little bit, I got introduced to it back in 2015. Okay. So it's been, 11 years since I first read Get a Grip, which was the book that I read. So Get a Grip is a little bit different than Traction. It's more of a novelization of a story, fictional story of a company that is just hurting. They're frustrated. They've got some issues going on. They meet Alan, who's the implementer in the story, and they kind of walk through that first year or two of working with an implementer. So I'm reading this book. Actually, I got it from a buddy of mine who said, you should definitely read this. And of course, with every other book I was told to read, I put it on the shelf. And he called me a week later. He was really good to respond and follow up and said, hey, man, how's that book going? It's like, man, I'm on it. If I'm honest, I just haven't read it yet. I haven't picked it up. I'm so sorry. He's like, no, it's fine. No worries. But I'm going to call you in a couple of weeks. And then you tell me what you think. And it's like, okay, now I got to read it. And I couldn't put it down. I should have started reading it sooner, right? So I read it and I thought, man, we've got to put this in our business some way, somehow, figure it out, right? And so like a lot of companies at our size, we just decided that we can't really afford an implementer yet. So we're going to try to do it ourselves. We're smart people, right? We're technical. We're all just running businesses. So this should be easy, right? And in theory, it is like these are simple tools, but not understanding kind of the theory and the ideas behind why these tools exist and why they work is needed, right? And so we didn't have that. And so for 4 years, we tried just self-implementing. And I think we got about 1 or 2% into the EOS like lifestyle or system, right? At that 4.5, 5 year mark, we finally hired an implementer like myself. And for 3 years, worked with him to help us really make sure EOS was running in our business. And at about that 3rd year mark, I just had this thought in my head that kept going over. It's like, what would it look like if I did this? I'm referring people to him, but I really love this stuff and I'm seeing what it's doing in our business. So I just got a real passion for, man, what does this look like? And so it took me another year to kind of pull the trigger, sign up for boot camp, and did the whole, EOS Implementer thing and it's a franchise deal. So I'm a franchisee, like 877 of us around the globe. So, this is a global franchise deal and it's working, right? So we have 32,000 companies running with an implementer like myself, running on EOS, and also probably another 100,000 more that are trying to do self-implementation. And we just saw the difference, right? Between having the person who's in the room who knows where all the hidden bones are, right? Where they're buried, and ones who don't know what they're doing. My analogy I've been using lately is, if you needed to have surgery on yourself, would you go read a book and then cut yourself open and fix yourself? Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Right. So it's like, not that this is life or death or, this isn't a medical issue or urgent deal, but at the same time, there's a reason why we exist. There's a reason why we have this franchise model that we can help companies get better at, because we know why this all works together. Seeing the matrix behind all the different tools and disciplines that we do, it clicks when a client of mine who I got a handful now that have been self-implementers had me in the room. And at the end of the day, they said things like, this makes sense now. I was totally not doing this right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you do that? So it's interesting because these are smart people.
Sure.
Theory says like, oh, this should be an easy task. Read the book, do the things. But the book is, I tell people a lot of times it's just a kind of a sales tool for us because it only kind of scratches the surface on what we teach in the room.
Of course. Yeah. Well, and then you got a unique perspective. You were sitting in that seat, watched it kind of what you thought was working and didn't see it. And then you had an implementer come in. So now you have a unique story plus all your experience. At what point does it make sense for a CEO, a founder? I mean, I know several of my clients are on EOS. Some of them are self-implementers and some have one. But what does that look like? Somebody's listening right now and they're like, that's an aha moment. I probably should have at least reached out to Aaron.
There's like 5 frustrations that we see with all my clients and pretty much anyone else that decides, hey, this enough's enough and I need to do something different. And that is, one, they don't feel like they've got control over the business and they've tried self-implementing, or they haven't even thought about implementing EOS and don't even know what it is, but they're just frustrated because the control is not there. They feel like the business is running them and they're not running it. 80% of our time is dealt with people or dealing with people. And so if you've got a lot of people issues or just can't quite figure out why things aren't working in the business, that would be another frustration we see a lot of. This idea of hitting the ceiling where, you've been going fine in the business and at some point you get to where, well, I'm not making as much money or I'm not making as much profit or revenue. I've hit the ceiling and I don't know how to break through it, is something that we also see a lot of from our clients, and just nothing is working. I just feel stuck. Right. And some things I can't even put their finger on it. I think those are the type of people that typically reach out to us and say, hey, I need help. Or on the flip side, if they are self-implementing, I brought in a new client who's in Mississippi, 6 employees. So, we say 10 to 250 is our target market. But this gentleman has been trying to implement EOS and he's an owner, busy as all get out, right? He doesn't have time to ensure that this is working the way it's supposed to in his business. And so that's where we come in, right? It's like, hey, this is what I do. Let me handhold you through this process, get you really well-versed on the tools and disciplines so that you can start running your business and I get the heck out of your way and you run it really well and even better than you were today.
You answered my next question. I was going to ask number of employees before it makes sense. So It's interesting. It sounds like there's a sweet spot. Somebody that is sitting at 6 people, how does that translate? Because probably wear a couple different hats anyway.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that first day that we spend with a client, a lot of the time that we spend is understanding the structure of the organization. And what's fun for the smaller clients is that we start writing out these seats on the whiteboard, right? And we know what the business should look like 6 to 12, maybe 18 months out, right? What we do then is call out who's going to sit in those seats. And ultimately what happens is that the owner or the founder or the person at the top is sitting in about 5, 6 seats.
I believe that.
And there's great clarity that is brought in those conversations, because now you see on a board, my gosh, I'm doing way too much. I didn't get into business to sit in 5 different seats. It's like this whole E-Myth idea, right? It's like, hey, now you're getting up at 2 o'clock and making the bread and doing the invoicing and getting the payments and training and all the things, right? You're doing everything. Most entrepreneurs don't get into business to do that unless you're a solopreneur doing something different. But again, that's not our target market anyway. But for those who want to run businesses with employees and grow the business, it gets really hard when you're sitting in 5 or 6 seats because you become a bottleneck. And so what we call out is the fact that, hey, because you're in these 5 or 6 seats, you're only doing every one of those okay. None of them are being done well. So if you think you're a great salesperson, but you're inundated with all these other daily tasks that have to get done, you're not outselling. So now you got to figure out, well, who do I need to hire to get in the sales seat? If you're the one doing all the financing and payroll and AR and AP and budgeting and forecasting, and you're not the person who has a degree in anything finance, then why aren't you finding someone who fits that seat and can do it much better and faster probably than you can, being more efficient, finding the things that you probably wouldn't even see because you just don't know what to look for. So again, going back to the finding the right person in the right seat, which is something you and I have talked about, right? Is how do you figure out who the right person is? What is the right seat that they need to sit in? Figuring out if you have the right people today. Maybe you don't even realize it. That was one thing that we figured out really quickly, is that we use a tool called the People Analyzer. And so when we had on a piece of paper, again, black and white, people that we had analyzed against our core values and 3 simple questions, which was, do they get it? Do they want it? And have the capacity to do the job? We knew that there was 2 people in our organization that just didn't fit the bill, right? And so it became very black and white that these were not the right people in the organization. And the fear was, if we let them go, our ticket count was going to go up. Our other employees were going to be more busy, and then they're going to hate life. That maybe we would lose some clients, or just a bunch of head trash, right? It's just around what could happen or what the bad scenarios that's going to fear, right? Exactly. Yeah. And so we pulled the trigger because we were like, look, we can't continue going forward without making this change. We made the change in the same day, 2 people gone. And funny enough, the next day, the air in the office was a little bit lighter because one of them was kind of a negative Nancy. We also realized that he was taking up a lot of time of our other employees. And so our ticket count actually went down with 2 less people working tickets because he was taking up so much time that these other guys weren't getting as much as work as they could get done, right? Now they could focus on their workload and their tickets and knock them out faster. And so it's just those fears that we have, right, of making changes and what is it going to look like? What's the optics? But when you don't have the right people in the right seat, you're just hurting the rest of the company in ways you're not even seeing.
It's funny when I have a client that approaches me and they're having these conversations, and maybe it's not through anything other than they know that this person isn't a fit. And I always tell them, if you're having those doubts already and you've had some coaching and where are we going? You can get a roadmap for it, but you'd be surprised the addition by subtraction, how business can run smoother, and it isn't going to be the end of the world. Now, you need to figure out who's going to go in the seat next. Maybe. It sounds like that's a pretty good exercise. What do you think? And I think you may have mentioned this, and this dovetails into it, but what do you think one of the biggest hiring mistakes is that leaders make if they're going out and hiring?
Especially in the entrepreneurial space, right? Most of the time you start getting busy and then you decide, I've got to fill this seat really quickly. We did the same thing. We're getting busy. We just got to find someone. And if, they fit within the salary range we want to pay and they are decent or okay at what we're looking for from a technical standpoint, if it's a technical company, whatever the role is or whatever the need is from a knowledge standpoint or acumen standpoint is, we would just fill the seat. So we would hire fast, fire slow, right? And we all know that, most of us know that you should do the exact opposite, right? Hire slow, fire fast. And so when we decided on implementing EOS, one of the things that became very clear is now we had a way of identifying very clearly who the right people were. And so we took our time to find the right people that fit our culture like a glove, because you're spending more time with these people than you do your wife and kids. 40 plus hours a week. Take away the sleep hours as well. You're with your family less time than these people you work with every day if you're in a business, right? And so you really want to make sure that the people you're bringing in fit that culture. And core values is one way we look at that is, do they fit your core values? But you also have to know what your core values are. You got to know who you are at your core to know who the people are that you want to spend the time with each and every week. People that you just love to see and you miss them when they're gone. You'll text them after hours. You'll hang out with them on the weekends maybe. Not that we all have to be buddy-buddy in business, but there is something to be said when you've got someone in an organization who is chipping away at your culture in ways that you're not seeing.
Yeah.
And it becomes a cancer in the organization.
Yep. And frankly, sometimes the leader is the last to understand because everybody else is always already talking about it.
Well, and funny you bring up leader, because sometimes a leader is also not the right person in the right seat.
Fair.
So just because you have a leadership team and just because they're getting paid a certain amount of money more than maybe the other employees and they have a different seat at the table, we spend the time on the front end of me working with a client to ensure that leadership team really is part of the leadership team, that they are the right people in the right seat. Because if you don't have that figured out, none of this is going to work.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a pain point for you, and it's going to continue to be a pain point until that issue is resolved.
All right. So we're uncovering a lot here in a short amount of time. I still want to dive in a little bit because we know that you can come in and help these smaller companies, middle-sized companies. What does that look like? Reaching out to you, sure, but then where does the discovery come in? How do they start exploring?
Great question. So we have a proven process. It's called the EOS process, and it really just starts with a conversation with the leadership team. We call that a 90-minute session or a 90-minute meeting. So I will talk to someone who's kind of hurting or frustrated or just wanting help, just to make sure that, hey, this even makes sense. Typically from there, we'll schedule that 90-minute meeting because it's 90 minutes of you and your leadership team's time. And leadership teams can be one person, can be 8 people, it can be 15. We talk through that number and make sure that we've got the right number for the leadership. But we spend that 90 minutes to really just unpack everything there's to be unpacked regarding the tools and disciplines around EOS. And they get to learn a little bit about me. I get to learn a little bit about them, kind of where they've been, where they're going, those kind of things. If they decide to move forward, there's 3 session days that we schedule out.
Okay.
Before jumping into the execution phase. So something called a focus day, which is the very first day I spend with a client, full day, 8 hours, typically it's 7 hours plus or minus an hour. We talk about that accountability chart, making sure we've got the right structure for the organization. I start teaching them tools and disciplines that are going to help them just even that next week after they leave that room, get better at running this business. And then we spend 2 more days clarifying that vision for the organization. Because a lot of times the vision for an organization is in the visionary's head, but it's never been clearly communicated and articulated to the rest of the team. And what we tell people is that if you can get everyone bought in 100% on the same page with that vision, that's when you start seeing magic happen in the organization, because everybody now knows that North Star that they're rowing towards or moving towards. And then when you're off course, you're like, wait, there's a problem. We got to course correct.
Yeah.
And so from there, it's execution, right? So I meet with clients every quarter, usually around 5 times a year, just to talk through what this looks like and making sure that your tools that you're using are being used well and executed on. I tell people all the time, if you can't execute on this, then it's not going to help you. I can teach you the tools. I can tell you the disciplines. I can show you the things that we show all of our clients to get better at their business, but it's no different than going to the gym with a trainer. You can pay for a trainer. You can go to the gym with a trainer, but if you're not eating right at home, if you're not doing the stretches at home or doing the other things that the trainer's saying to do when he's not around, you're not going to see any changes. You're not going to see anything that gets better with your physical shape or health, right? Same here. I can give you all the things and all the tools and all the nice binders and, talk through different ways of handling different situations. But if you're not executing on this day in and day out, it's kind of in vain.
Yeah, they have to put in the work. I can tell you're totally passionate about this. And I know you have been for a while. We've been talking about it. Well, and the reason we're here today is because you were in my building and you were actually doing one of those 8-hour days. And I was like, you heard me or whatever, saw me or whatever. And I'm like, oh, there's Aaron. And so it's good to catch up. And I literally yesterday was on a phone call and one of my clients, they had just finished a level 10 meeting. And I was like, I'm literally talking to Aaron tomorrow. You weren't there, implementer, but it just goes to show some of my clients are going through this process and have seen and reaped the benefits. And they were talking about their vision and how it's changed them in 2 years and what they never thought the revenue was possible, but by putting these processes in place. And that's why I want to bring you on as somebody, a different perspective. You're still in the people business and that's what I do. And this is, beyond the ledger, it's helping grow that ledger through the right people in the right place.
Yeah, that's actually probably one of the reasons I love doing what I'm doing. I've realized I'm an extrovert. So I thrive on being with people, seeing people, being in a room with a bunch of people that are trying to figure out how do we do this better?
Yeah.
And being able to be part of the journey to help them see that vision and then see it come to fruition over time. Yeah. It's just awesome, right? I just love being in that room with them, helping them through their issues, helping them just get clarity in those light bulb moments where like, oh, this is so much clearer, like what we're doing the next 3 months or 6 months or 12 months or 3 years.
Right.
And what does this business need to look like? And getting everyone on the same page and seeing it in their mind's eye and saying, oh, okay, this makes sense. We can do this. And now everybody truly leaves that room charged up and ready to like crush it. Right. Yeah. And it's like, go do it. You've got this. You've got to do the thing. You've got to do the work.
Got to do the work. Your passion does exude. And I think being in the situation you were before to now, I'm curious, this is a franchise model. What does that look, I guess not what the franchise model looks like, but I mean, was there ever a point when you're like, oof, what did I just do? Or you're like looking at your wife, like, I'm jumping off the cliff. Here we go.
Yeah, that's the story that I love to tell because by all worldly views, this is kind of a crazy thing for us. I came from a job that was, pretty comfortable, right? Got a nice paycheck every couple weeks. I'd been there for 11 years, so loved the company. And it was bittersweet when I left because we had a great team. We used the tools and we built a great team and we were growing. I think when I left the company, they had actually added on like 20 new logos or 24 new logos right as I was leaving. And so we were just doing, great in the business. And for an MSP, to be fair, like most MSPs add maybe 3 to 5 if they're in that smaller range, right? And so that bittersweet moment of realizing that I'm so passionate about this, that I think this is what God's calling me to do. And so for the first year of doing EOS, I was still working the business and trying to build this practice. And because my wife was like, wait, you're not quitting your job, are you?
Yeah.
Like, no, of course not. Yeah. That's not at all the plan. So, for a year, continued doing what I was doing. And she finally came around and said, hey, I think if you were to leave next week, God would provide. He's going to provide. So then we started having conversations around what this really looks like. I gave notice in May and 3 months later was my last day. And it was a leap of faith, truly, because financially speaking, it didn't make sense. I needed to have so many clients to, kind of replace what I was making before.
Right.
But, God's been faithful. And so, I'm at a point now where that's not currently an issue anymore. And I'm able to help as many clients as I can. Up to a point, right? So I've got a kind of a bar that I've got to hit.
Sure.
And after that, I'm going to be really, really busy if I hit any more than that. But right now it's a fun journey. It's just been great to be in a place daily where I have to submit and say, hey, this is your practice, not mine. All I'm here to do is do what I feel like I need to do on a daily basis, right? I got to do the grind, so to speak, which I hate that term because it's so negative. But you do the work, right? You got to get out there, meet people, have the coffees, go to the networking events, get in front of people that, just have the conversation and see, where it lands. But ultimately, it's out of my control, like most things in our life, right? And so it's been a fun journey to see. And my kids, I've got 4 kids ranging from 17 to 8, and they're seeing dad, take this leap of faith to really depend on God for everything. I mean, I cannot force anyone to work with me.
Right.
So it's fun, and they get to see that entrepreneur kind of business model and what that looks like. And, they get excited when I land a new client, like, oh, we got a new client. I'm like, yeah, God's provided again. It's awesome. So
that's great. I was going to close with the question. I'm still going to ask it, but I feel like you wrapped it up really nicely. But what are you excited about next?
Just getting mastery of even the things that I'm already teaching and that I'm decent at. Like, I'm good at what I'm doing, and I believe that I'm bringing value to every client in every room that I get into. But there's this idea that we continually are getting masterful at what we do within EOS and the tools and the facilitation and the coaching. Again, I love people. I love just getting in the room and helping them figure things out, but even getting better at that. And so, hiring my own coach and making sure that I'm getting coached, because I believe so passionately that everyone should have a coach, a system, and a peer group, ideally, if you're going to do really well in your business. And I've got to eat my own dog food. I got to practice what I preach, right? So I'm getting a coach to help me just get better at what I'm doing in the room to bring even more value to my clients. So I'm excited about that, and just the amount of businesses that I'm going to get to see of all kinds, right? Things from AstroTurf companies to water bottle companies to voice over IP companies, like all the different industries that I'm going to get to see is exciting for me. I love to learn new things. And so learning these new businesses, how they operate, kind of looking behind the curtain, so to speak, beyond the ledger, wink, wink, doing those things is fun, right? And just seeing how I can help in any way, shape, or form I can. But that's what I'm excited about when I've done, 300, 500 sessions and a different kind of companies that I can help along the way, and people that I get to meet along the way, and just seeing their story, hearing where they've come from, where they're going, what they're passionate about, what their purpose, cause, or passion is within the business, and how they're going to just continue to get better and better if they execute. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
I'm excited for you too.
Yeah, man, thanks.
I can see the passion. You've got a lot of experience under your belt. People can really learn from you, even if it's not choosing you, but you're there for that purpose. Sure. I will put how to get a hold of you in the show notes, as well as, I guess, is there another way besides LinkedIn, or is there a website or something? Yeah, the website is the Aaron Garcia. It's Aaron, just to be fair. So the Aaron Garcia.com is my website, but LinkedIn there. And those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Was that a Key and Peele joke? May have been. I might open We're up ending with Key and Peele. I might open up every one of my talks with that piece, but sounds good. You'll have to see it to believe it. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'm Troy Ashby. And remember, people are more than their titles, and companies are more than their balance sheets. Follow Beyond the Ledger so you never miss an episode.